2006 was such a big year for video games that often goes overlooked because of the year that followed it. But monumental things were happening on all sides. Sony had a new console, Nintendo had a new console, Microsoft had you buy a new console. The real gold though was in the software. Titles like Gears of War, Oblivion, Dead Rising, Twilight Princess, all revolutionary games that gave us a taste of what next gen was capable of. I mean, look at these graphics, listen to this music, this voice acting.
What do you want, you? What do you want, you rat?
Every big developer wanted to be the first to strike into what next gen truly was. They wanted to exemplify what could be done with this kind of power, and in the middle of all of this, we have a sports game. But not just any sports game. We have the most iconic, memorable sports game of all time. Wii Sports was a game included with every Nintendo Wii console. A glorified tech demo for some, it was just a game that basically showed off the extent of the system's motion controls. 5 sports were chosen for their general familiarity: tennis, golf, baseball, boxing, and bowling. Most of these can be controlled with one hand and are as easy as swinging the Wii remote around. Based on this, you may think Wii Sports is a very shallow experience with not much going on, and that's because it is. The graphics are simple, the music is appeasing, the 5 sports lack in depth. For this being Nintendo's chance to show off the console's specs, it was an awfully risky first impression. But Nintendo knew exactly what they were doing. Kind of. See, Iwata originally thought that Wii Sports could stand on its own 2 feet and thus didn't think it was necessary to bundle it with the Wii in North America. He thought consumers would naturally be drawn to the game and buy it on their own, so he said, "I'm not packing it in." But then Reggie came forward and said, "You're gonna be packing your bags because that's a horrible joke." Reggie convinced Iwata to bundle the two together, and thank goodness he did, because this game was all it took. It went from being the minor bonus you got after purchasing a Wii to the reason you wanted one. Young kids, senior citizens, fucking cowboys, I don't know. All types of people were intrigued by the title, and it became near synonymous with the Wii's MO of games reaching new demographics. So then you might be wondering, how did such a minimal game make such a big splash? Wait, no. A big strike. Right away, let me spoil the overall plot twist for you. Wii Sports was not low budget or low effort, although I can understand why some people would think that when games like these were coming out at the same time. It was intentionally made bland to appear more accessible to a wide population. The graphics are generic, but colorful and inviting. The menus are plain, but easy to navigate. The music is soft, but ensures not to be overly intrusive so that it doesn't distract from the engagement within the group of players. Side note, listening to this OST, you can easily tell how close this game was in development for Tataka to Wild World just because of how similar it sounds. But the biggest offender for Wii Sports' simplicity is the controls. Unlike other sports games, it takes any needless complication for pressing a button to trigger an action and instead just has you perform that action. It is dummy easy, to the point where anyone standing in the room can figure out how to play just by watching. Wii Sports does not require or reward any degree of skill, you literally just flick your wrist and watch the magic happen. And in this process, the doors of Wii Sports open to many. It created unions. Holiday of 2006 will forever be one of my favorite Christmases, not just because we got a Wii from Santa Claus at a time it was super hard to get them. Okay, humble flex, thanks mom and dad. But because never before and not since have I seen a room packed with family of all ages and backgrounds excited about Nintendo. As someone who loves a lot of people and a lot of video games, it can be hard to bring the two together, but Wii Sports did just that. Like, I don't think I'll ever get my grandfather to play a video game with me again, mainly because he's dead, but Wii Sports will forever be the one title that we got to bond over, and I will treasure it just for that, even though I'm sure he would have loved Lollipop Chainsaw. Now, not everyone got the multiplayer experience, but by yourself in single player, you got something just as cool, if not cooler. Mii's. Having Mii's of all of your family or friends made it so that you could always play with them even if they weren't there with you, but also then there was the pre-made Mii's who were just... I feel like I need to give context to why I'm about to say what I'm about to say. Alright, last time I tell this story. Fall of 2006, I play Animal Crossing Wild World for the first time. Forever changes the way I look at NPCs in video games. Immediately following that, Twilight Princess comes out, the most cinematic and characterized Zelda game to date. And then right after that, we got a Wii for Christmas. So to spend so much time playing with and against all these pre-made Miis who don't have a shred of dialogue, it is the most oddly receptive parasocial relationship. It feels wrong to call them characters when they're literally just a name and a face, but that didn't stop my mind from running wild as a kid. Matt was a mentor in boxing, Maria was a valuable tennis partner, and Abby made the entire team lose every time we got stuck with her in baseball. But to make a long story short, when my friends weren't around, these guys were a solid meal replacement. Well, yeah, no, we'll go with that. Okay, now since it's this channel, you know we gotta do our signature thing here, okay, ready? All 5 Wii Sports ranked from best to worst. Number 1, bowling. Bowling is easily the king, not only because it's probably the closest you can get in the simulation, but because you can do this. We played this a lot when we first got our Wii since controllers were hard to find and taking turns wasn't all that bad, but my favorite thing is that this was the sport to absorb people. If me and my brother started off playing 2-player but someone was watching, we would end up with 3 or 4 players. It's just super accessible and I love it for that. Next up, tennis. Tennis is the best 4-player game to really get the room poppin', but I love it for how responsive it is. It's one of the more active games and it follows the controls pretty well. Plus it's hilarious to get your Miis close to the net so you can try and create a black hole. I also really love getting the speed serves when you do. This would be so cool if you could actually do this in real life. Oh my god, could you imagine if tennis was a real thing? Baseball is fun, but very bare bones. It's just batting and pitching, and probably the greatest challenge of it all is figuring out what type of pitch it's gonna be. But it's very satisfying to hit home runs, and once in a while out of the park. If I had to pick on something though, the field is untapped potential, and it can be frustrating leaving everything to a CPU as aforementioned. If you've revisited Wii Sports in recent years, you may have found out that the controls aren't very great. Like, it's obvious how underdeveloped things were in 2006, but that nobody cared because it was 2006. And the sport that gave it away was boxing. I'm not sure if it was super inaccurate or if I was just working so hard to beat my brother that I couldn't focus. I will say the nunchuck side never seems to get it right, it just doesn't calibrate well. Also, I get sweaty playing this. Either way, too much work and Punch-Out did it better, but also Punch-Out ruined my life. Look, it's 2021. We do not discriminate against anyone, especially not for their race, their religion, or who they're attracted to. But if they come out and say their favorite Wii Sports sport is golf, then they are fair game. This goes against everything Wii Sports stands for. It is slow, long, repetitive, and lazy, all so you can very lightly try to putt the ball and have it move 4 miles into the bunker. I'm not a fan of golf, and if you are, then I'm not a fan of yours. Just kidding, I love, leopard forest. The sports of Wii Sports aren't too varied, and this is well known. It's for this reason I think more people remember its sequel, Wii Sports Resort, more fondly. But we can talk about that in some other video. For now, I just want to bring up Wii Sports Club because I never see anyone ever talking about Wii Sports Club. Every time I play this game with friends, they're all shocked to learn of its existence. But that may be because only 12 people own a Wii U. To summarize a whole lot, Nintendo actually remade Wii Sports for Wii U and included a lot of cool things, the biggest thing being online multiplayer. This, for me, is a realized dream turned nightmare because of the Wii U install base. I spent 15 minutes trying to find a match, but I get it, no one owns a Wii U, and if they do, they're probably not trying to play tennis online. Quick little update, after I finished this video, I went back and I did end up finding a match after like 20 or so minutes, but the most important thing is that I kicked his ass and I wanted you all to know. Okay, continue on. But what gets me is, why not give it another go? The lack of any Wii Sports style games on Switch is especially clear mainly because this game is still kept alive by fans. Between all the memes, all the competitions, all the funny mods, and the fact that this game doubled in price during quarantine, it's still very much appreciated in 2021. But could you imagine if we got to revisit Wii Sports with this big of a player base and could take it on the go and play online? Especially during the pandemic. Nintendo is long overdue for this, and given the motion controls of the Switch, it should be a given. Anyways, I'm completely off the rails now. While most of my videos have some sort of argument or point to be made, that is not happening at all. I'm just here to say that I really fucking love Wii Sports because it's fun, but I guess in a way, that is the point. You don't need a game with a huge budget or wildly detailed graphics or that tries to be super escapist in order to be one of the most successful games of all time and find a home in the hearts of audiences across the world. It just has to be fun. And Nintendo held on to that. In a generation that can basically be summarized as motion controls versus first-person shooters, the Wii would come out on top. An impressive accomplishment that no doubt would not have happened if not for Wii Sports.
Nice shot.